So, as Ger said, welcome everyone and thanks for logging on today. I'm joined by Ger Carton, he's a director at PlantQuest. And for the next 20 minutes, we're going to be exploring the benefits of visualizing your CMS and why we like to consume data visually. We'll run, as I said, we'll run for 20 minutes, and then after that, we'll have a 10 or 15-minute Q&A. So at any stage, if you do have any questions, please pop them into the Q&A below, and Ger and I will get to them, or alternatively, raise your hand as well. We encourage questions and ask as many as you want. So, Ger, over to you if you want to kind of kick us off.
Okay. Okay, thanks everyone for coming today. A lot of you know me already. My name is Ger and I'm a director here at PlantQuest. And today we're going to talk about visualizing, bringing visual context to your CMMS. So quick bit about us. So PlantQuest, we see ourselves as the visualization solution for pharma and advanced manufacturing facilities. The solution has been designed from the ground up to fit around your existing plant or your new plant. What we endeavor to do in PlantQuest is fill the gap that's left in a lot of visualization systems, and that's the integration piece. So we look to bridge the digital system in your plant with the physical world. Today, the system that we're focused on is CMMS systems. That is the fabric and the process of your plant. And it's looking at linking your CMMS system to that plant. Goes without saying that the demo today will be asset focused. So we'll be looking at how your assets can be placed in the plant. As I said earlier, so we do a lot of work with pharma facilities, biomedical facilities, but we also extend into a lot of other advanced manufacturing, such as semiconductor and battery manufacturing as well. So just a few questions and a few observations from us really before we get going. First and foremost, how happy are you with your CMMS population? A lot of the sites that we go to, the CMMS, they're not too happy with the information that's in their CMMS. Next is how well your technicians and planners know your site, and does your CMMS support them in locating and navigating the way around the site, be it for executing or for planning? And how easy is it for your technicians to capture asset data in the field? So let's talk a bit about your CMMS. This is a Maximo CMMS, but we also work with Hexagon and SAP and other CMMSs as well. So location in CMMS is typically a free text field, and there's nothing worse than a free text field. It's unvalidated. It leads to inconsistent data and inputs. It's rarely, if ever, mandatory. And when the information does go in, it's tabular. So that makes it very difficult to interpret. If we take a zoom in here and we look at this location table here, this is, typical free text, could mean a building, could mean a room, could mean a site, could mean a piece of equipment, could mean what somebody thinks it is. You've got blank stuff there, you've got words, you've got codes. So that really doesn't lend itself to accurate spatial planning or accurate location of assets within your site. So this is something that we're trying to overcome with PlantQuest. We were looking to give this visual context to your CMMS. So if you can imagine, what would you really want in your CMMS in order to extend the benefits that we have from digital systems outside of our lives and work, such as Google Maps, into our lives and work? So we'd start with a map of your facility. And then we look at, is there any rooms or areas where you want that extra bit of context? So the picture in the top right there is from a scan that we did of a plant. So we can embed scans and photogrammetry for areas with extra density of assets. We'd integrate with your CMMS, so all your CMMS tags go in there, and then you map the location of the assets, which we'll show you in a second in the demo. And then from that, once you've visualized your plant, you've visualized your asset locations, then you can expose it to the people who need it the most. That's your technicians, that's your planners, that's your visitors to site. You can use it for onboarding, you can use it for planning. You can spot patterns and work smarter. And it's probably worth, before we go into the demo, looking at why do people consume data visually? So if you can imagine, people, we use our eyes an awful lot, obviously. And when we look at something visually, answers become a lot more obvious. So if you can imagine looking at a bunch of work orders or a bunch of assets or a system walk down in the context of your plant, rather than in a list, decisions can be made a lot quicker. What you're looking at reflects the real world, and it's very referential to what we use in our lives outside work, which I've said already. So what I'll do now is I'll go into a demo of PlantQuest. So this is PlantQuest on the web. So there's a few ways you can interact with the system. You can enter a room ID, an asset ID, an asset type. In this case, we've selected a plant room. So on the left here, you can see there's 3 types of assets, systems integrated with PlantQuest: a fire system, a SAP system, and a mobile asset system. So we're looking at a bunch of assets from SAP. It could be any other CMMS as well here. So we can see the location of all the assets in the room. We can see the tags of said assets. It could be work orders. It could be preparing for a shutdown. You can see all the information now coming from the CMMS system here. We can also link back to the CMMS if people want extra information as well. We now look at another asset. So you can see that this plant is across 2 levels. So we now look at an asset on the 2nd level. It's a condensate tank. So if we zoom in here again, you can see the exact location of it. We can see the asset information. So all this information is coming across from the CMMS. So you can see it's on the 1st floor, it's in the plant room, and there's also a photograph of it included as well. And what we'll do now is we'll show the routing algorithm within PlantQuest, which can bring you to the exact location of the asset. So you can imagine now you have a vendor who's coming to site, or even a new joiner after joining your team. So now you can see the route straight through the plant, tells you how long it's going to take, brings you up the stairs and straight to the location of your asset. So what we also do is, I said, we provide that extra bit of context. So you can also jump down and view the asset in 3D. So this is something that's added extra for areas of density, such as plant rooms, if you want it. So you can search, locate, navigate in 3D. There's 2 types of data captured: panoramic photo and also LiDAR point cloud. So we capture 3,000 square meters, or around 30,000 square foot per day, with a wearable scanner. The point cloud, obviously, it can be used for measuring and offtakes, and essentially it's an engineering quality scan. Next, what we'll look at is the filtering capability of the system. So you can filters can be brought over from your CMMS, so you can filter the same way. So here we're looking at a bunch of isolation valves, 9 of them. So you might have a soft part changeout that you want to do. You might have some isolations that you want to put on. Again, you can see the tags of the assets. You can plan an optimal route to them. We have an algorithm for that. And we also have layering, so you can see what assets are in a production area. You can also see what assets are in a hazardous or an ATEX area or an explosive area. And you can also see if any assets are in a plant room as well. So all these layers of context are really contributing to giving your workers, visitors to your site, that extra bit of help when it comes to executing planning tasks. Work orders, work packs, so you can pop work orders or assets into a work pack. Here we've got 9 assets that we want to look at for a vendor coming to site for some inspections. You can prepare that work pack, print it to a PDF if you want, email it to them. It's all there ready for them. Now, getting assets into the system, and this is a question that we had prior to the call. So you can see here we've got 1,000 assets after coming in from the CMMS. So the assets are all here in PlantQuest, ready to have locations associated with them. You can also add assets out with your CMMS as well, but today we'll just focus on CMMS. So now we've selected an asset. You can see all the asset information on the right. You drag the asset to the room. You can see in the top right there, the room's been selected. All the SAP information is there, can't be edited. You confirm that you want to add an asset to the room, and you just hit save. We'll select another asset here. Again, drag the asset to the room and hit save. So what you're doing there, you can see how fast it is to actually add assets to the system. What you can also do then is you can add assets in the field. So we have a field survey application available on Android and iOS. So if you have people in the field doing walkdowns, doing task execution in the field, it's very easy to just drop a pin and add an asset. So this is our iOS application here. What you do is you just drop your pin. So you've dropped a pin in the plant room, the exact location, select your CMMS asset from the drop-down. You can see all your asset information coming through there. You can take a photograph for it as well. You can refine the location, hit save, and now you've added your asset to the system. We'll just do another one here. So we've got an LPHW boiler. So we enter the asset ID, drop the pin, hit save, and your assets added to the system. I did mention that you can add assets out with your CMMS. So if you do have old parts of the plant and you want to do walkdowns on them, you can just drop your pin, enter your asset information, and this can be fed back to your CMMS admin or to somebody in your plant so they can add it to the CMMS in time. Or if you have assets that are out with your CMMS, you can add them in as well. So just to summarize what we see as business as usual, within CMMSs, we see incomplete and inaccurate location data. We see teams struggling to locate assets, alarms, and work orders. Obviously, the bigger your plant, the more challenges you're going to have around that. And CMMSs, they operate siloed, so the data is just within the CMMS. And there's a lot of time wasted onboarding and escorting workers, visitors around the site as well. So what we see with what our customers see with PlantQuest is they see a very accurate and complete asset location data set. What that does then is it drives instant location of assets, work orders. You've got huge benefits coming from not having to escort vendors around site, shorter technician onboarding. And what we do with CMS is one part of what we do, but there's other systems we can integrate in, and we can layer on your MES, your BMS, your safety systems. So you get that one overall, one view, kind of holistic view of your site operations. So we'll just go through a quick case study, and then we'll come to the Q&A. So if you do have any questions, please do drop them into the chat or raise a hand. So this is a biopharma facility that we worked with recently. So a few big challenges. The big challenge that they had on site was around knowledge management and loss of knowledge around the site. So the senior leadership team wanted to protect against worker turnover. So they were losing a lot of workers, a lot of reliance on experienced workers who were leaving. And there was no standard way to store and manage location data. So after some assessment, the site decided that the easiest way and the most efficient way to take knowledge in-house was through visualizing their CMMS, because the CMMS touched, I think it was 80,000 assets within the site. So what they did was they integrated PlantQuest with their CMMS, which was SAP PM. They also did a scan of about half the site, so 40,000 square meters. So that was 12 days of scanning, and they captured that type of Google Street View experience that we showed you. And over the course of a few months, then there was a hierarchy to how assets were captured and tagged. The team in the site, supported by us from time to time, just drop pins for asset locations, both in 2D and 3D. So big win here was the knowledge was taken in house, and anyone coming to site, the information was available to them. Maintenance work was now really efficiently planned. Planners didn't have to walk down to the site anymore to see how high something was up. Remote engineering teams were able to remote into the scan to do planning, and there was a consistent kind of flow of asset data being captured and verified in the field, as I showed you with the survey tool. And that was reported back to the CMMS admins for them to action. So getting PlantQuest set up in your site is quite easy. So initially there's an assessment done where we look at the data sources and your requirements. So sometimes it mightn't be every asset in your CMS. Sometimes it could be valves for isolations. It could be calibratable instruments, soft part change out. So it's looking at that subset of assets that allows you to get going and then building on that. We then create the maps and embed all the location knowledge within it. There's 3D scans if required as well. And then it's doing the integration with the CMMS and populating those asset locations. So recently we had a team based on a site, and we trained the site in how to do it. And I think they were capturing about 250 assets per day. So you can imagine how quickly you could populate, a lot of the critical assets in your site. And then PlantQuest goes live, pin dropping, and then you can expand it to other systems if you want. So just to summarize where we got today, so really your CMMS is only as powerful as its accuracy and the context that you're viewing it in. So if you have a 1990s or early 2000s CMMS and you have a 2025 workforce, never the twain shall meet. And I think that the more easier and accessible that you can make data, the better it will be for your outcomes. As you saw in the demo, like the mapping of assets and unlocks faster decision making and execution. So again, if you're looking at all your work orders for the week and you're filtering that way, or if you're executing tasks using PlantQuest to search, locate, and navigate, things become a lot quicker. And look, it really boils down to this: the more efficient people are in their maintenance and in the operations of your maintenance program, you do get to that kind of goal of reduced downtime and safer and smarter operations. So thank you very much, everyone. If you have any questions, I see we're right on time. Please don't hesitate to drop them in.
Great, thank you, Ger. But just while we wait for 1 or 2 questions to come through, we've had a couple through this morning. You addressed this one. So how long would it take for my site to get PlantQuest deployed?
So from start to finish, you're looking at around 8 weeks. Generally, we go to site for a day or two just to do a quick survey and a look around and gather some requirements. And then beyond that, there's a lot of remote work done in mapping out the site, a bit of back and forth on room names and numbers, and the optimization of the routing. And from there, then you're probably looking at 4 or 5 weeks then beyond that. So about 8 weeks in general.
Excellent. And another one here is, so what level of customization can be made to the system so that it's suited for my facility?
Yeah, good question. As I showed you in the video, in the demo, there's a lot of customization can be done around room types and area types, and that feeds into the navigation algorithm then. So, if you have people of different user access levels who aren't able to go into hazardous areas or aren't able to go into certain areas, that can be fed down to the different levels of user access that we have. Also, within the user access levels, there's the ability to add assets, to not add assets, to validate assets onto the system, and to add users as well. So it's extremely customizable, yeah.
Excellent. As Jared said, if anyone has any questions, please put them into the chat or use the Q&A function as well, and we can get to them. One here from Cassioger. Would PlantQuest feedback to the CMMS be validated within a GMP company?
Hi, Cassio. So short answer is PlantQuest does not feed back to GMP CMMSs at the moment. It's something that we're looking at, but in general, what we do is, if there is any feedback from PlantQuest, what we do is it feeds back to the CMMS admin. So the suggestion and comes back to the CMMS admin, and they're able to review it along with the person who made the suggestion. So, for example, if somebody wanted to suggest a different manufacturer or model number, then that will be fed back to the CMS admin and they can make that call then as well.
Thanks, Cassio.
Yeah, just while we're waiting and we're just wrapping up, I suppose it's what PlantQuest does is PlantQuest is the 80-20 rule in terms of visualization of your plant. For 20% of the cost, you really get 80% of the value. It's in the BIM and the visualization space, but it's a lot more maintainable and sustainable than having a full-blown 3D model of your plant going all the time, because that means a lot less maintenance if it's just click, drag, drop in order to work with assets in either 2D or 3D. You don't need to employ someone to continuously model your plant. I see we have a question here from Jens. In the Google Maps type view, can you see documents linked to the asset you see in the view? Yep. So I suppose, Jens, this demo today was primarily about linking to CMMS, but we also link to doc management systems, manufacturing execution systems, building management systems, PLCs as well. So if you have documents linked to an asset in the view, then 100% we can link to assets. So if you have a commissioning completion system, calibration management system, calibration certs, commissioning protocols, yeah, they're all available for you to look at within the system.